everybody. I'm Fajardo Anstine, and I'm going to read from my debut novel, Woman of Light. I actually come from the northern frontier of Mexico. I'm a Chicana of mixed indigenous Filipino and European ancestry, and I invented a place called the Lost Territory that is in this novel to understand my history and my upbringing, where I come from. So the scene I'm going to read, this whole book is based on my own family history, the oral stories that were told to me by my elders. And I'm going to read a scene that focuses on the character Luz. She's our protagonist. She's a woman of light. She's clairvoyant. She's psychic. And we're going to follow her as she first comes to Denver from southern Colorado. And in this scene, something is going to happen that well, you'll listen. Okay. Shelter from the storm. Seems strange, don't you think? David said to Luz as he opened the office door to the street. It was the late afternoon and the end of April. Luz was almost done with her shift at the law office. Sunlight moved around David's shoulders and curly hair and pressed into the lobby. The thunder? Luz asked. No, said David. It's too consistent. And he stepped outside onto the sidewalk. Luz stood from her desk and followed him into the warmish spring air. What do you mean? She called. The sounds grew into a roaring pitch, a mass of jeers, their source concealed by the great gray city. The air turned. The sky was laced with stinging cold, and several passers-by had almost noticed the unusual sounds. And they too slowed to a stroll, their faces turned upward to the rumbling. Luz stayed on the sidewalk and watched as David walked through the eerily trafficless street, down the thin medium, surrounded by parked automobiles and dated brown carriages. He looked upon the horizon where the site of the road ended in the train station, nestled between brick offices and the backdrop of the mountains. Luz watched as David walked in his black suit. He moved gradually, but as the sounds grew, he sprinted until he reached what Luz suspected was a higher vantage point, the place where he could see the source of all the commotion. At once, David turned and with both arms waving, yelled for Luz to go inside. Now, he hollered, sprinting back in her direction. Right now, inside. Hairs rose along her neck. A darkness swirled overhead, dizzyingly strange, as if the city was about to be engulfed by a tornado. Now, Luz! David ran to catch up to her on the sidewalk. As David rushed toward her, Luz searched over his shoulders and scanned the long road once more. At the blurred edge of 17th Street, in the space reserved for sky, Luz saw the unrelenting beginnings of a long, white parade. Men and women cloaked in white robes, their pointed hoods bobbing along the horizon, an American flag displayed among the first row, a pine cross held into the air. Luz had not seen a KKK march with such numbers since her childhood. And the longer she stared, the more the parade revealed itself like a flopping white serpent emerging from the ground, a hateful, moving body. In those fleeting moments, as she stood on the sidewalk before David yanked her by the left wrist and guided them both inside the office, Luz stared at hundreds of Klan members. There was a section of women, their white, rosy faces in the chilly afternoon, their small children, some no more than 3 or 4 years old, pulled along in red wagons. How, Luz thought, could they bring their babies?